Pharisees come in all shapes and sizes, and maybe you have one in your life. And who knows, there could even be one staring back at you in the mirror when you get up in the morning. Anyway, maybe today's thought will help you get free of the Pharisee. So, today's essay is called Don't Be Fooled by the Pharisees. Good Friday, of all days, is the one I associate most with my mother's religiosity. Yes, my mother was quite religious and sought to follow all the rules as she understood them. There was a rule or regulation for everything, it seemed, and they all needed to be followed. Those rules would be imposed on me also, by default. I hated rules and still do. I remember one Good Friday morning pulling some sausages out of the fridge. I had a hankering for them, you see, on this particular day. My mother was quite horrified. "It's Good Friday," she screeched. "You can't eat meat on Good Friday." In my mind, it was just Friday, no different from any other Friday. Yes, there was an air of solemnity around the house on Good Friday. I remember it was all very serious. "Remember," she would tell me, "anything you ask Jesus on the cross today at 3 p.m., you will get." It had to be 3 p.m. and not a moment sooner or later. 3 p.m. sharp, and that was it. I tried that a few times, but I was a bit dubious about it all, and besides, I wasn't the most punctual and would remember it only at 3:04 p.m. And so I was too late and out of luck, and would have to wait until next year to get what I wanted. Anyway, these were the rules, the conditions that had to be followed, and there were so many of them that it was hard to keep up or remember them all. I always seemed to be lagging behind somewhere there in the distance, probably looking for my to-do list in my pocket somewhere. My friends' mothers didn't seem to have this burdensome weight of religiosity. I was envious of that, them not having to live under such regulatory, monastic-like conditions. It was like COVID restrictions, but for those of a religious persuasion, and it was all self-imposed. All that was missing was the face coverings. I had my doubts about it all. Not about God, mind you, but about all these rules of the road that you had to follow, with a puritanical speed cop waiting for you at every turn, eager to add some killjoy points to your license or seize and impound your vehicle. I needed to break free from all that. It never seemed right to me. It was like God had been packed up into a little box, and even he needed permission to show his true self. No, I wasn't in any way religious, at least not in the rules and regulation sense. I didn't buy into that lockdown mentality. I knew there had to be more to it than that. In religious class in school, the Christian brother would have us read the Good News Bible. I still remember it with its orange floppy cover, and in primary school we all had to have one. When we would read the stories in class, it never seemed that religious to me, unless there was a Pharisee involved somehow. No, they were the real religious ones, obeying all the rules, thinking they were better than anyone else. Just to clarify, my mother wasn't like that. She just did the rules-obeying part. The thing about the Pharisees is that they all hated Christ. I mean, really hated him. He really pissed them off. Those holier, I'm better than thou types. He rattled their cage to no end. Why is that, I would wonder? It's amazing how angry one can get when your position of power is threatened or put into question. Control over your flock, whatever kind of flock that is being challenged, questioned, when previously it was a no-contest scenario. That would indeed rattle your cage, cause you to fight back with everything you have, lest you lose control over people, even maybe driving you to executing he who was doing the questioning. The one characteristic I've always noticed about the religious, the rules and regulations type, is that they can be quite controlling. The need to be in control of situations and people. I think this need is rooted in fear and exposes a lack of freedom in that person's being. I saw that to a certain extent in my mother, that religious bondage that weighs a ton. She was a product of her generation, I suppose. This characteristic is not, of course, one that is unique to religious institutions. Religion can manifest itself in many forms that have nothing to do with any church. We see it in many ideological movements such as Greenism and its moralistic overtones. This need to regulate others, in their case, on a social level using climate control as a pretext for power over people's lives. We saw it during the COVID debacle also, with those who had access to the levers of power and the media, such as that ISAG Trinity professor, Ryan, calling for a zero-COVID totalitarian control grid. Of course, such individuals will never admit that they were wrong. Totalitarians don't do wrong. It's not part of their vocabulary. This need to control and engineer on a social level is merely another expression of religion, albeit of a different type. When people reject God and renounce their accountability to Him, they often seek to replace Him with some other form of belief, and then turn that ideological belief outwards to impose it upon others, to make them captive, to enslave them. COVID, climate change, net zero, wokeness, there's no end to it. But if you look closer and focus your attention, you will see that it is all just more social control dressed up in different clothes. The clothes of the common good, compassion, and altruism. This acceptable face of control is well packaged, so as to disarm you, so you let your guard down, easily accept it and take it on board. Those who propagate such altruism are the self-appointed high priests and Pharisees, and they know what's best for you. All you have to do is hand over your liberty and give them the authority that they crave, so that they can establish their utopian dream, the one they are peddling. You would soon find out that it's not a dream at all, but is in fact a nightmare, one that you might never wake up from. They, of course, would be exempt from the very restrictions they place on others, as they themselves would be considered too important to the cause to fall foul of those regulations. They would be like the Soviet elite of old, who were chauffeured around on traffic-free roads, because all the plebs, by decree, had no reasonable access to car ownership. Don't be fooled by the Pharisees. They are not always easy to spot, but they always want control. For your own good, of course. That's the difference, and that's why I like God. The one I read about in the Gospels. The one that ended up in front of a firing squad. He doesn't want to control me like a robot, or demand tightrope walking rules of me that I can't keep anyway. No. He just suggests a little faith and a regular chat. You know, to catch up on things and offer some advice, to see if I'm on track, and if not, give me a nudge in the right direction. It's not a bad deal. When you do this, you're not as easy to control, and the fear tactics of the totalitarian don't work so well on you. That's why totalitarians and Pharisees hate God, and don't want you having anything to do with Him. You see, God is bigger than any fear they could ever impose upon you, and their access to your mind would then be curtailed. I've always found the story of the Samaritan woman at the well, a social outcast, fascinating. Jesus spoke to her when normal Jewish custom of the time forbade it. More rules and regulations. From Jesus' perspective, there was no condemnation. It was just a chat. But with the added dimension of Jesus having supernatural insight into certain aspects of her life, that she knew he couldn't have known, unless that knowledge was given to him supernaturally. This is what blew her away. In this gospel episode, the disciples return and, upon seeing this playing out, grumble among themselves, wondering why he was talking to such a woman. But here's the thing. Even though they were taken aback by what they saw, they said nothing. They didn't interfere. Why? Because they recognized that this was a personal thing between Jesus and this woman. There is no mediator, no control, no rules and no regulation. It was just conversation, one-to-one, nothing in between. That is the essence of the gospel and why it's good news. It's why I'm not religious. I've gotten free from all that.